Welcome to the Soul Fucking Real podcast, where real, raw, and honest conversations take center stage. I'm Key, your self-expression and voice liberation guide, here to empower visionaries, rebels, and creatives to live boldly and authentically. Each week, I'll bring you episodes that inspire you to show up, speak out, and embody your most authentic, liberated self. We'll explore topics like spirituality, entrepreneurship, personal growth, social issues, expression, and more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, thank you for tuning in. It's been a while, but I'm back now. I'm excited to explore new topics in 2025 and to bring on some really dope people who I think you need to hear from. So today, to start off, I decided that I wanted to talk about something that's really been, on my mind for a while now. And that is being a multifaceted, multi-passionate person in a society that's really obsessed with staying in one lane. So if you've ever felt like your passions and talents don't quite fit into a neat little box, or like people are constantly telling you like, just pick one thing, or like you're never focused, I feel like this episode is really going to resonate with you. So, our society really loves to tell us this idea that success comes from choosing one path and following it really relentlessly. And like finding one thing and committing to it and never deviating. But what happens when you're someone who doesn't fit that mold? When you have passions and talents that span across different fields and they all light you up in different ways. For people like us, multifaceted, multi-passionate beings, this linear idea and this way of thinking can feel like a trap. I know I've felt this many times. I still feel it all the time. It can make us question if are we even meant to be here? I know some of you have felt that way. Like, is this society for me? And let's be real, it can feel fucking lonely. Like, that is the one thing that I don't think people realize, especially when you're like a creative or, a thought leader. It can be really lonely. Because when society doesn't understand you, it has a way of making you feel like there's something wrong with you. Or like you just don't fit in anywhere. You're always the one at fault. But I just want to invite you to explore the idea that there's nothing wrong with you. In actuality, being multifaceted and multi-passionate is a superpower that a lot of people either suppress or don't possess. And that's why it's hard for them to understand those of us who decided to live out loud, to explore different things, to kind of look at life as a buffet where we want to taste different things. We want to try different things. The society we live in thrives on predictability. It's easier to understand someone who's like, oh, I'm a doctor. Or, oh, I'm an accountant. I don't know. I play chess. I'm a tennis player. We can easily understand those things. It's much easier for people to process than someone who's like, oh, I'm a coach, an artist, a podcast host, a healer. And oh yeah, I also love makeup and astrology. Yeah, I'm talking about me. People don't know what box to put you in, so they assume you're unfocused, unreliable, or still figuring it out, like you just don't have your shit together. And if you're like me, those assumptions can feel like daggers, especially when you're already battling your own internal doubts and doing quote unquote too much. But here's the thing, society's obsession with boxes isn't your burden to carry. The world is changing. And I know it's fighting for its life, the current society that we have. It's really fighting to hold on. But the more of us who reject these outdated ideas and openly live the lives that we feel are authentic to us, the easier it'll be for other people to do so. And the easier it'll be for us to shift the world to something that we would prefer to see, something more accepting, a world that's more understanding and compassionate and, that lets people live out loud and live authentically rather than forcing them into boxes. Being multifaceted and multi-passionate It's beautiful, but it is messy. And people hate mess. Just at the end of the day, people feel that if something is messy, there's something wrong with it. And you might feel like you're constantly starting over, constantly explaining yourself, or like you'll never master anything because you're spreading yourself too thin. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're scattered or unfocused. It means you're dynamic. We are multi-layered beings. We have dimension, we have depth. You have layers. You're a whole galaxy versus just being like one star in the sky. So the key is to not force yourself to choose just one thing. It's to find ways to like integrate those things, your passions, or to prioritize them in the seasons. Maybe this season is about your art and the next season is about your coaching business. Or maybe you find ways to weave them together, like how I bring creativity, healing, and self-expression into all of my work. Let's address the loneliness for a minute here, because I know this shit hits deep. When you live a life that doesn't fit the norm, it is isolating. You might feel like no one gets you, or like you're constantly walking this path alone. And you're not alone. There is a whole world of us out here, misfits, rebels, multi-passionate visionaries, who are living non-linear lives just like you. And the more you lean into who you are and share your journey, the more you'll attract people who resonate with you. Your people can't find you when you're hiding or suppressing yourself. When you're wearing a mask, you attract the people that are attracted to the mask, not you. So it's very important, right, to start to accept yourself for who you really are so that you can find the people who will accept you for who you are. So how do we navigate this multi-passionate life in a world that doesn't always understand it? I wanted to give you a few things that have helped me personally. So number one, it starts with giving yourself permission. No one else is going to give you the permission, okay? Like, I can invite you to give yourself permission and I can, pour life into you and speak life into you. But at the end of the day, you have to give yourself permission. You have to stop trying to justify it to others and start owning it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are. So number two, embrace your seasons. Like I said previously, it's okay to like focus on one thing more heavily during a certain season, and then come back to it later as you focus on something else. You don't have to do everything at once if that doesn't feel right for you. If that doesn't feel good and it feels overwhelming, ask yourself and be honest, what season are you in? The third one is find your people. Often we try so hard to fit in with people who just aren't meant to be in our lives. This is just so detrimental, not only to us, but to them. It's unfair to have to, force yourself to fit in with people who don't get you or who just don't understand what you're about. It's up to you to surround yourself with other multi-passionate individuals who get it, whether it's online or in your own community, physically. Finding that support makes so much of a fucking difference. So I think this is actually one of the most important pieces. Number 4, turn your why nots into possibilities. So instead of thinking like, I can't do all of this, start to like flip that a little bit. How can I do all of this in a way that feels good for me? It opens up the idea that it is possible and lets your brain start to think of different ways. Write it down. Everything is so much more solidified when we write it down. And I feel like asking yourself questions like that, like, how can I versus I can't do this, will start to give you the ability to go into your imagination, start to play with ideas, get creative, kind of try to figure out what works for you. And number 5, be your own example, okay? Show others what's possible by living your truth unapologetically. You never know who's watching. Like, you never know. I've had people message me who I don't even know, like I've never spoken to them, who tell me that something that I said or the way that I'm living has touched them in some way. You just never know who's watching and who's being inspired by you. Being multifaceted and multi-passionate is a gift, okay? I want you to start looking at it as a gift. You're not here to dim yourself to make other people comfortable. You're here to shine and to be unique, multidimensional, That is who you are. So let's stop apologizing for being like who we are and start celebrating it instead. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear this reminder. That is the only thing I will ask of you. Share this with someone who you know needs to hear it, or a community that needs to hear it, so that they can start to be themselves and to feel like there are people out here who get it. Thank you for tuning in to the Soul Fucking Real podcast. If you loved this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and drop a comment to let me know what resonated with you. I'd love to stay connected, so be sure to follow me on Instagram at key.boldaura. Until next time, stay true to you.